Alright guys, we're going to start. Basically, this is going to be your first class. This is puppy education, so it's basic obedience. So the things that we're going to be going over are going to be sit, down, come, stay. We're also going to go over walking, okay? We're also going to go over greeting, dogs, things along those lines. We're also going to be going over several things that we call resource guarding behaviors. Resource guarding behaviors are things like basically when you see an older dog growl when you go to take their favorite toy away, or growl when you're basically trying to take a bone away and things along those lines. Things we don't want. We're actually going to be working with leave it and drop it, okay, with those types of things. Now, if you guys ever have any questions or anything along those lines, you guys can feel free to ask me. I'm always going to save time at the end of class to go over specific issues like potty training issues, biting issues, chewing issues, ways to curb those types of issues and things along those lines. One of the things is I see everybody has them. I want you guys to get a 4 to 6 foot leash so that he doesn't have this 20-foot span. That's going to be really helpful when we do our loose leash walking. Also, it's going to help in the controllability. And one thing I don't like about these is they tend to break. So if you're ever walking out in traffic, sometimes they'll break and your dog has 20 foot of room to run, you know. And so just bring a 4 to 6 foot leash next week, all right? Now, we're also going to be going over several different things that involve, you know, basically out of this ring. This is the only week that will be basically completely to this ring. Next week, I'm going to have you guys out in the store. We'll be working in the aisles. And the weeks after that, a lot of our coursework is going to be out in the aisles and so forth. Over the next 5 weeks, we're going to actually be going over those loose leash walking and breathing skills. Okay, so it's going to be 5 weeks of actual information and going over those things. Keep growing it, going over your specific issues for that. I'm going to be sending you guys home with homework every week. It's important that you guys practice the homework. Okay, if you guys don't practice the homework, you can't really do anything with the dog further. Okay, it's going to be important that you practice homework because the dog has to learn those skills before he moves on to the next step. You will notice your dog falling behind the rest of the class if you do not do your homework. PetSmart usually suggests about 30 minutes each day. What I'm going to tell you guys is do an hour each day. 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 5 minutes there right before you go to work. Do the training, practice with your dog. You will get a dog that you want out of this class as a dog that's kind of okay, that kind of does behaviors, kind of listens. Because remember, this is basic obedience. If you want something farther than this, you have to go into the next 6 lessons where we work with distance, distractions, and durations. We're working with minimal distractions here. Carts going by, other dogs and things like that. We're not really dropping chairs, throwing toys in front of them for distractions because they're not really ready for that. They need to go through this first 6 weeks, build these building blocks of the behaviors, and then go into the advanced stuff. Okay? Now, if you guys ever have any questions, like I said, interrupt me, hey, I got a question about that. And then I'm also going to be working with you guys individually throughout the class. It's like seeing how you guys are doing, giving you guys pointers and so forth. Come on in. Alright, so I'm going to be working with you guys. I'm going to basically do demonstrations, and then I'm actually going to show you actually how to do it, and then I'm going to have you guys actually do the behavior. Now when we do this, I'm going to make my way around and place on each one of you and kind of get you guys on the level with a lot of behaviors. Okay. Now, when we do these behaviors, since this is a morning class, a lot of people feed their dogs in the morning, their puppies in particular, because they usually get fed anywhere between 2 times, 3 times a day. What's going to be really important for you guys is don't feed them Saturday morning, okay, before you come to class, alright? You want them to be hungry, alright? You will notice if you feed your dog a lack of interest in what we're doing, okay? The dog will be overall just kind of a blatant stare or wanting to do their own thing, alright? So, it's going to be real important to not feed them before this class. 1 time a week, feed them after class, perfectly fine, alright guys? So no problems there, alright? So, when we talk about treats and so forth, we want to talk about values of treats. Value of a treat is going to be basically on a 0 to 10 scale. Okay? A 0 is going to be about a biscuit, you know, a milk bone biscuit. It's very bland, it's full of grain and things along those lines. There's some flavor to it. So it's going to be about a 0 to a 2 for a biscuit. Now, when we talk about other things like training treats and so forth, you get training treats, something like a pepperoni. This is usually ranging about a 3 to a 6 with the dog for pepperoni. And then you also go into basically treats that are designed for training. So training rewards, they usually smell really good and they usually taste really good to the dogs. Okay? So we always have some treats for you guys to try over here. But what I want you guys to do is buy the treats. So so that you guys can actually practice at home and also bring those treats to class. These are basically as a backup plan in case your dog stops eating your treats, which they commonly will do. There's nothing wrong with a dog that, I don't want to eat that treat anymore. There's a lot of times they're working the system to see if they can get something better. Alright, so this is going to range about a 6 to an 8 for a dog. Just the normal training treats, Milo's Kitchens, and the little Jack treats here. Those are all about 6 to an 8 on the dog scale. Now, 8 to a 10 treat is going to be human grade food, okay? You know, mozzarella cheese strings, hot dogs, bologna, things like that. Things we don't really want to have to go to. And typically I don't have to go to those types of things in class because it will give your dog the runs a lot of times. Mozzarella cheese strings, probably not. But the hot dogs and things like that, it will. Because of the fat content and the oily content of those types of meats. Now, one of the other things we want to go over is what we call cues and markers, okay? Now, cues, a verbal cue would be sit, all right? That's something that we commonly tell the dog we sit, and that's a verbal cue. Now, what we actually be teaching in class is the visual cues, okay? So we teach the visual cues through actual luring techniques, okay? So we want to lure the dog into the position so we can actually teach them the actual motion of sit. So a lot of our dogs don't really know sit. Do any of our dogs know sit? No? No? Maybe sometimes. And sit, maybe. Okay, good. Excellent. You get that? Alright, so if they already know sit, what I want to do is basically teach them the hand signal. But if they don't know sit, we're going to be teaching the hand signal right away. The one thing that you'll notice is I'm not going to say the word right off the bat. I want to teach the behavior first before I add the word in. Because if we're pairing a word with nothing, it means nothing to the dog. I can tell you sit, 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 sit. It means nothing to you until you actually do the behavior of sitting, okay? So, same thing with the dog. We don't want the 5th, 6th time that you say sit to mean sit. We want it to be the first time. So what I want you guys to do is have a little restraint when you're saying the word sit. Don't keep repeating it, all right? The biggest thing is a lot of people get frustrated. They go sit, 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 sit. They keep repeating it. Wait them out. Sit. Okay, well, I'm going to wait you out. Sit. Oh, good. You did it the first time. Good. Now you get a treat. That's what I want you guys to focus on, is having patience with the dog and be able to work with them, all right? We don't want the 5th time, 6th time to mean sit, all right? Now, we'll also be going over what we call watch me behavior today. Watch me is a very useful behavior when we have distractions and so forth. Squirrels, cars, the shiny syndrome, as we call it in dogs. Oh, shiny. And then the dog completely lose all attention on it, okay? So we want to work with these types of things because with the watch me, we can actually redirect their attention back on us so they can wait on the next command. They're going to be actually waiting for us to, hey, let's go this way, or let's go this way, sit down, stay here, and so forth. So watch me is going to be one of our building block fundamentals that you can use throughout this dog's life for distractions and things like that. Especially with Highlands, especially usually with small breeds, they get very distracted very easily. And this is a small breed class. And so they get very distracted very easily. Because they are typically ground animals, they typically go after small prey, so they're head on a swivel. Okay? Alright, so now what I want you guys to do is give time to the training. Alright? Not only do the homework, but have patience with the training, and don't just give up on your dog. Okay? That's going to be the biggest thing. Is dogs will naturally go through this thing where they know everything right off the bat. And they'll have these days where they just like, we didn't learn that, you know, and they'll act completely dumb, you know, to whatever you're trying to train, all right? So it's real important to have patience with the dog, and, you know, the days that they're having a blonde moment or a dumb moment, what we're going to do is we're going to work with the dog and getting them through those types of situations, okay? So make sure that we have more patience for those days and we get them through that, okay? Now, when we talk about markers are going to be commonly things that you commonly say to the dog right now. Good boy, good girl, things like that. In the class, you'll notice we use a clicker. All right. Now, my background is actually, I actually used to be a feline and dolphin trainer, and so my background is actually through a whistle marker. We call them bridges. We actually get through to the animal a lot quicker by using a sound as opposed to a word. Now, the reason behind that is because the sound is a lot quicker, it's more concise. If I give you my clicker, if I give you my clicker, if I give you my clicker, it sounds the same for all of you, all right? Now, the word, good boy, note when I start saying it, when I finish saying it. It's a long word.